So, one of the most profound healing processes that I've learned throughout my own personal and professional journey, given that I've been on this journey now since I was 10 years old, right, after surviving a near death experience, I can wholeheartedly say that systemic family constellations are one of the most profound transformational vehicles, processes. I don't even know what to call it, to be honest, to assist you, me, anyone really that's essentially ready to transcend and to gain insight and to understand and to bring harmony to and to reorganize a family or any system, really, whatever system that you are working with, whether it's you and yourself, just like within, you are a complete system and you have multiple systems running you as well. And then you operate in your family of origin system, then you might have had created your own family system and on and on it goes, right? So, and then there's a work context, which is a different system that you operate in. So if you have been a student of self-development, personal, professional development, right, like myself, and you've done all the things, you've done all the visualization, the meditation, the affirmations, the workshops, the podcast, read the books, etc., and you understand yourself intellectually, right? But there are just certain patterns or certain things that you feel like just keep repeating and that you can't necessarily think your way out of or feel your way out of or visualize your way out of, right? Or therapize your way out of. I really think that this is a profound next step for you to consider. And it is very synchronistic that you are listening to this video. In this video, I'm going to explain to you why they are so profound, how they work, what the hell they are, right? How to prepare for one. And I'm winging it. So I'm just going to essentially, I'm running one tomorrow. So it's very fresh in my mind, which is why this video is just spilling out of me right now. So if you, at the end of this video, do want to, and at the time of recording this video, I'm running one tomorrow. But even if it's not the same date and time as this was uploaded and published, I actually run Systemic Family Constellations monthly in my Aligned Living Collective, which is a school platform, school communities, SKOOL. And mine is called the Aligned Living Collective. So here's the thing about systemic family constellations. We are dealing with systems, right? Like I was mentioning before, you are a whole system. You have your respiratory system, your skeletal system, your musculature system, your endocrine system, your nervous system, right? There's so many systems that you're even operating within you. And then you obviously operate externally in different contexts of your life or systems. And one of the first reasons that it is so effective and so powerful is that we are dealing with different systems and contexts for you. So whether your issue is regarding money, family, your own career, potential, like it doesn't have to necessarily be about family. So that's the first thing. Systemic family constellations are not necessarily about family. They could be about any issue. They are simply a way of you accessing very unconscious, hidden dynamics, energetic dynamics that are operating beneath your conscious awareness. So you're not even aware of a lot of the inherited patterns and dynamics that you are operating from because they happened when you were in utero, pre-verbal, when you were pre-verbal, and largely, right, unconscious of even having picked them up or learned them from osmosis. Because when we were little, right, we didn't necessarily have the faculty or the wherewithal or even the words, even if we potentially telepathically knew that like something was off or something wasn't right for us or aligned for us or we needed something, like, that's why a lot of issues that happen in adulthood are as a result of our deprived needs as children, right? Because we cried and we screamed and when we were hungry or we needed love or attention or feeling safe and supported. And so we did whatever we could, right, with our behaviors, with our words. In many cases, it's pre-verbal. So it's like screaming or crying or making sounds to try and get those needs met. And then essentially what happens is if there is a delay in those needs being met, or if our caregivers or providers were not necessarily as present, like maybe they were physically present, but they weren't like out to lunch or stressed themselves or feeling completely stretched and overwhelmed, then their nervous system and their entire context that they're dealing with, maybe from work or from their relationship, etc., is now being energetically interchanged with you. And if you're a little helpless baby, right, that doesn't have the words, doesn't have the wherewithal to like get up and walk away or put a boundary in place, etc., then that starts to have an imprint on the way that on your self-concept and the way that you see yourself. And so this is really why this process is so profound, because it enables you to step back from your system, right, whichever system you're operating in and wanting to access. It's the field of energy, of infinite potentiality and energy, right? It's the source of everything ultimately, which is this field of energy that we tap into. And this field has intelligence and understanding and insight that transcends my insight, intelligence, etc., and yours, right? So we transcend our own projections and expectations and our judgments about, what we think is right or wrong or good or bad or better or worse. So you get space. You not detach in like a spiritual bypassing away, but you literally have enough space to sit and observe your system, your your field, right? And what it is revealing to you about what is required, where it's been, fragmented, or where it needs to be addressed, what needs to be reordered, what needs to be reorganized. Now, every system has a particular energetic order, right? And when something like trauma, exclusion, grief, abandonment, loss, secrets, when these types of things occur in your system, right, later generations can often carry the energetic residue of those traumas, those secrets, those lies, those abandonments, those losses, those griefs, whatever it is. And the later generations, which could be you, right, carry the weight of that energy, right? That residue stays with you. And that's why it could be like, you have this little black cloud that's just like following you everywhere you go, that you just, at the time that you're about to get a raise or a promotion or a new job, or have some level of success, like something knocks you down and you can't just break through that particular income ceiling, for example, or why you keep having interpersonal conflicts with a sibling, and you just like keep bumping heads and having conflict, or why you and your parents potentially are not having this flowing relationship of love and acknowledgement and respect and ease. So it can be with anyone, and it can be with anything, that these secrets, lies, loss, grief, entanglements, these traumas, right? These exclusions can happen. Think about it at work. How many times people are excluded from meetings, excluded from emails, excluded from deals. Secrets are happening behind people's back. There's a loss, the loss of job, a loss of a promotion, a loss of faith in your team members, a loss of vision, a loss of income, a loss of revenue and clients. There could be so many different forms and variations of all of these different invisible dynamics that are occurring, these energetic entanglements that are occurring, that ultimately, from a systemic point of view, can be reordered, reorganized, and put back into balance. So a lot of other modalities, right, self-help approaches and types of solutions, right, therapy, counseling, coaching, healing modalities, etc. It still has the assumption that you are even if they say like, okay, you're not the problem to be fixed, it focuses on you. And in systemic family constellation, the focus is on the system and what the system requires to rebalance, to reorganize, and to have harmony. You might be functioning perfectly, but perfectly in response to a system that is not functioning perfectly. And that's a huge, huge differentiation, a huge nuance, is that you might be functioning perfectly in a system that is not functioning perfectly. And so when an issue, when one of your patterns, when whatever it is that you are grappling with, struggling with, trying to create but you can't, etc., trying to overcome but you can't, no amount of willpower, no amount of reframing, no amount of positive thinking, no amount of meditating, visualizing, affirmations will actually change the dynamic. Right. So common examples that I often work with people in a family constellation around would be things like repeating relationship dynamics that you aren't logically or rationally choosing, right? Like you're like, this is not something I would choose for myself. Hitting income ceilings despite, doing all the right things and doing whatever it takes, or, you get to a job or a promotion or some type of milestone in your career and your vocation, and then suddenly like something comes and strips it up from under you. Feeling chronic guilt or over responsibility or codependency or enabling, right? Like if you are a people pleaser and you have a tendency to placate everyone around you and you just can't seem to like get out of that, and you're like, I know I shouldn't be doing this. I know I'm burning myself out. I know I should be saying no to these people, or I know I should be putting energetic boundaries in and like looking after myself. But it's logical, it's rational. That's why I'm saying it transcends all of that. And then it looks at, okay, well, what is the system that you're operating in? Like, where does that come from? Are you carrying a burden from someone? And that's where it's like, I don't know the answer to it. You clearly don't know the answer to it because you haven't yet solved it. And so we have to access the field to get divine intelligence to give us insight around what is required. And then that ripple effect will literally go out into your system and create the harmony and the balance that is required to whatever degree it is available, right? So it's important to just realize, first of all, that this is not going to be necessarily an overnight fix. Oftentimes it does profoundly transform things, but remember, there are layers. There are aspects, there are details, there are different, dynamics that are literally entangled. So like, I want you to think about like a really tangled knot and how long it often takes to really unthread it and to free all of the different fibers or threads or chains or whatever it is that are all tied up. So go into this with expectations that are realistic and that are safe for your nervous system. Because the other thing to keep in mind is that our nervous systems often don't allow us really to go into change things or to, like create new pathways because they're new. They are unfamiliar. We haven't yet spent time, energy, and, it doesn't want to spend time, energy, and money doing something that's unfamiliar, untested, no guarantees, like potentially unsafe in its world, right? Or potentially that even aligns with and resonates with dynamics, right? Energetic patterns, burdens, things that you're holding on to that largely unconsciously are not for you and that aren't rational for you, that aren't logical and aren't even yours to begin with to deal with and to carry. And I really want you to think about the analogy of like having these bundled knots, right? That are essentially energetic knots that are blocking your flow, your pipe, your system, right? Water or energy creation, if you want to create something new, if you want to manifest something new, which is all energy at its essence, right? Frequency precedes actual physical form. So if you're wanting to change something in your life and you've got all these energetic knots that are blocking your pipe, is that energy going to be able to flow through with ease and speed and consistency? No. And so it doesn't matter. You can like lie there and sit there and like, focus the energy and direct it and to command it and to visualize it and affirm it and right, like get a Reiki session to like, undo the things. But like if you don't have the conscious awareness of what the system wants you to become conscious and aware of, then it's just not going to ever flow through. And you're going to just sit there spinning your wheels and, revolving around and around, not ever necessarily evolving, transcending the limitations or at the level, right? Transcending the level at which that problem was created. And oftentimes the level at which the problem was created or the entanglement occurred happened generations ago, right? When you were not potentially even around. So that's why this is so profound. So either you will bring your own issue to constellate, again, like it could be any issue in any area of your life. And if you are constellating your own issue, you will not necessarily be participating in the facilitation. You will be standing or like, in case it's like sitting behind your Zoom, your computer, your phone, your tablet, because the circles that I run are online. But typically, like in traditional constellation work, it is typically done in person in a circle. But after COVID, like, right, everyone is just so online now and more comfortable with Zoom and it's much more convenient. You don't have to travel and have added expense and spend extra time, etc. So online works just as well. And we include all of the phenomenology as well, like everything that is actually ultimately occurring, even if your sound doesn't work, like all the technological problems are often very related to what is actually being constellated, which is super fascinating. So if you don't have an issue that you'd like to constellate and you just want to hold space in the circle or represent, and what that means is that you represent a particular aspect, a particular part of the person, a particular relationship, a person, whatever. It could be like anything. You could represent the person's obstacle, their block, their money, their personal guide, their soul, whatever. Like honestly, the sky's the limit with this because again, everything is ultimately energy, cannot be created or destroyed. It's just changing form. And so we're tapping into the forms of what it is. And we are asking for it to give us guidance and insight about what it requires, not what we think it needs or needs to be done. Representing is not channeling, it's not acting, it's not playing a part as in acting. It's literally just like representing the aspect that is required for the facilitation to take place and for us to access the energy of that aspect in the field. And you then just become literally the vehicle of that information, of that insight, of that intelligence, right? So it'll be a very somatic process. You'll be with your body and the sensations that you feel. So maybe you feel a bit of a tightness, or maybe you feel like you want to say something. Maybe you feel like you want to crawl up in a little ball and like go on the floor. So everything we just say to you, follow that energy and like follow what feels true for you in the moment. And it's quite miraculous because, when we tap in and turn on to the field and the morphogenic field from a quantum physics point of view, everything is ultimately interconnected. You will absolutely, as a representative, experience different characteristics, feelings, etc. Like you will experience different energies that are available to you, and so you will relay those to us, and then that is right. Like then the facilitation occurs to get the system back in order, so that all the parts and pieces of the system feel like and there'll be a natural resolution point. Feel harmonious, peaceful, etc. Whatever the client is ultimately looking for. When we feel like the system has achieve that, then it's time to call it. Sometimes within the facilitation, there are other issues and other parts and pieces like of a bigger entanglement occur and come to the surface. And then obviously we would potentially deal with that in a different time because you don't want to overwhelm your own system. You don't want to overwhelm the system, right? And try and do too much and try and peel away all the layers and layers and layers and layers. And then after constellations, you really want to make sure that you don't go and talk about it and you don't go and like unravel all the work that you've just done in terms of like settling the energy. Because remember, the system is like unsettled. There's entropy. Now we're bringing, right, like just calm, balance. Everything is in alignment and it can now reorganize itself in whatever way it needs to, both into the past and in the present and into the future and out. So it also is transcending time, which is also a really fascinating and amazing possibility to an opportunity for us all to have access to, right? Is, even if your past potentially was very traumatic or like, shit that happened even before you were born, you now have the opportunity to go and like bring balance to that and restore balance to that and pay homage to your ancestors and to people that potentially, you've been holding burdens for unconsciously, and you can give it back to them. So it's not even, it's something that is so ineffable. That's my favorite word, when you can't explain it, right? You just have to experience it. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to fear. It's not like, It's a beautiful process that is completely transformational. And if anything, just come and be a space holder. And if you are asked to represent, you can always say no if it doesn't feel right or aligned for you. Nothing is ever going to be forced. You never have to be forced to participate in any way, shape, or form. So just know that if any other facilitators like priming you or bullying you or like, forcing you to do something in a constellation, then like no bueno. And they're highly confidential is the other thing, right? Like we keep them, they are sacred circles. So it's also important that if you do participate in one, you know, especially if you're working with me, that I'm very strict. I don't record the family constellations in any way. There are no recordings of them. So all of your information is, and everything that has come up with everyone, right? It's what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas in our circles. So whilst family constellations don't necessarily replace therapy or coaching or counseling or other healing modalities, they oftentimes complete what those other modalities fail to. So if you want to experience this live, then I would absolutely love to have you inside the Aligned Living Collective, where I host these constellations monthly, as well as group coaching sessions. So I'll leave the links below. All right, my beautiful friend, if you've got any other questions, leave them in the comments. I'm not sure if I answered everything that I potentially set out to, but again, I was winging it. So don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already so that you know how to come back to me. Hit the like button, the notification bell so that you're notified when the next one lands. Send some love in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.